Welcome to More Than a Conversation, the podcast where we meet and have discussions with some of the most interesting people and innovative leaders in their fields from all walks of life. We will be discussing everything from politics to theology to religion to philosophy to life. Every once in a while, I may just be on here talking about whatever's in the news and whatever I think will be of interest to you. This is your host, Patrick Conley, and I hope that today will be more than a conversation for you. Welcome to More Than a Conversation. This is Patrick Conley again. We're back for another special live conversation today. Yesterday, there was so much involvement. It was so awesome to see all of the comments and all of the people interested in the conversation while I was talking to Quantel Lindsay. Today, we're going to continue along the same vein of topic as yesterday. We're going to talk about what's happening in the world around us. But I am joined by a pastor today who has a perspective that is going to be so much more unique than most of the people we talk to. In the society that we live in, we are so guilty of putting people into boxes, putting people into categories and thinking that if you're in that category, then that's all that you are. That's the individual you are. That's the things you have to believe. And so we get caught up in these identities. But Pastor Jackson is with me today. Pastor Alex Jackson of Transformational Church. And Pastor Jackson, he has a unique perspective because he knows what it is to be a man of the cloth, a man of the badge, and a man of color in a nation that is tearing apart men of the cloth, that is attacking men of the badge. And we all know how difficult of a time it is to be a person of color in the United States. So it is my honor to have with us today Pastor Jackson. Pastor Jackson, thank you for coming on today, man. I'm so glad to have you here today.
Hey, man, how you doing? I'm glad to be here with you.
Now, Pastor Jackson, you are located where?
Well, I live and work in West Point, Mississippi, and our church is in Columbus, Mississippi, which is about a 15-minute drive.
And so I like to ask people when we get into these conversations, I like to know what came first. I like to know the origin story, if you will. So tell me this, what came first? Was it pastoring? Was it police work? Like, how'd you get started, man? What's the story? Let's go back and talk a little bit about that so we can know you when we get into our conversation today.
Okay. Man, I started law enforcement first. I actually started preaching first. I started preaching in 2011, and after that, I got into law enforcement in 2012. And so after that, in 2014 is when the Lord led me to start our church there in Columbus, and we've been rocking and rolling with both of them ever since, policing and pastor.
As a child, which was it that you knew you were going to be getting into first? Did you know that it was going to be police work, or what was the first thing that you had a desire to do? How'd you get involved in pastoring?
Well, growing up, my dad was a pastor. My uncle is a pastor. My great uncle is a pastor. I have cousins who are pastors. And so preaching has always been in our family. And, I just kind of knew then. And I also grew up in a church singing as a gospel singer ever since the age of 5. So I've always knew that I was going to be in the church. But I did, as a kid, have a fascination with police lights and things like that. I actually thought I was going to be a fireman growing up. But growing up, after I grew up, I realized I didn't like fire too well, so I took a different route.
And so, how old were you when you actually started preaching and actually started like going from the desire to actually getting into doing it?
Well, like I said, all my life I've been singing in a gospel group, and we kind of traveled around the world a little bit, put some music out, things like that. So I've been doing that all my childhood, and it kind of pushed me on into preaching, because I was the out front guy, I was the lead guy, and so it just came naturally. But around 20 years old is when I realized that it's time for me to go ahead and step into it, because for a long time I ran from the actual preaching part, and I said I'll just stick to singing.
So are there ever days now when you're like, man, I should have just kept singing?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, indeed.
Yes, sir.
Indeed. So you're going to be pursuing this life. You grow up in church. Did you do anything else as far as a career before becoming a police officer, or was that something you went straight into?
As far as career, I didn't do anything career wise. I kind of had some other odd and end jobs, but career wise, this was the first career move that I made for myself.
So now, were you pastoring when you became a police officer? Did you have your own church that you were leading at that point?
No, I was actually a part of the youth ministry team at my uncle's church, which is my home church, and I started policing in 2012, and 2014 is when I started our church over in Columbus. So policing came first in the pastor perspective.
So how does the idea of being a policeman and a pastor, we'll start with the easy stuff, the positive side. How do those two things go together? What things about a policeman make you a better pastor? What things about being a pastor make you a better policeman?
Well, I get asked this question a lot, especially in the beginning. People would always ask, how can you do both? But I look at it this way. In ministry, we should not be limited to the four walls of the church. And what I found is before actually getting on the police department, I didn't know that a lot of things took place in our community that I now know, because I'm seeing it from a different angle. And so it helps show what actually is taking place and what problem areas you have in your area. And you can better minister to that when you're on the ministry side of it.
So you get to know your area better. You get to know the issues that are happening better.
Oh yeah.
At some point, I would imagine there becomes some conflicts between pastoring and policing. There comes some things where you figure out, when am I a policeman? When am I a pastor? Where does one stop? Where does one end? Do they always coincide? Tell me about some of those early on difficulties when you began to see the two worlds just of ministry and policing colliding.
Well, most of the time is just from the perspective of the people. They just don't understand it. How I can preach on Sunday and then go out and write tickets on Monday, but my thing is this, and at my department, I hold a special position, which is the DUI division. And so that's what I do. I just write traffic citations and look for impaired drivers. So, I look at it this way. I'm saving lives from the pulpit, and I'm saving lives from the street, because that drunk can go down the road and hit and kill somebody or kill himself. So I try to get out there and prevent that from happening. So we try to get them saved in the church and in the street at the same time.
Amen. So now you guys, where you're at, where you're policing right now, what's the general atmosphere there right now in your communities? You're in Mississippi. Tell me what the air feels like right now.
Well, in West Point, everything is pretty cool. It's laid back. We what they call a retirement city. And so everything is pretty cool here. However, in Columbus, where I pastor, a few years ago, I think back in 2016, they had an officer involved shooting in Columbus where a white officer shot and killed a black man. And this was around the time where all those rash of officer involved killings was happening. And so just last week, actually on Thursday of last week, the AG's office sent down a statement saying that they have dismissed the case against the officer. And so that kind of stirred up the pot again in Columbus. But right now they're protesting in Columbus, but it's peacefully. And so that's what we're seeing over there. But yeah, where I work at, everything is pretty steady and smooth right now.
Well, thank God for that. That's
right.
a positive. Now, as you're in this community that's just had this thing overturned, and that obviously creates a lot of animosity, and creates a lot of disappointment, and creates a lot of issues. Maybe you can help me understand this, and maybe you can help people that are watching this understand this. Mm-hmm. Every situation that happens between yourself and a white person isn't obviously racist, but there's always a racial component just simply based on America and the history of our nation and so on and so forth. That being said, we know that every time a white officer does something that's out of line involving a black person, it doesn't necessarily mean that act was racist. However, it also doesn't dismiss, and at the end of the day, I'm not sure how much it really matters at this point whether that individual was doing something because of race based on the entire history and so on and so forth. But how does that tension work regarding when the public looks and thinks there is this war, and here you are, a man who's living in two communities, a man who is black and blue. How do you weigh that thing out when it seems like there's a tension and a adversity between the black community and policing? Do you think that tension is real as a man who's living in both communities? Do you think that's actually a thing that's happening? What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I definitely didn't know, because I guess growing up, like I said, my people were in the church and we were heavily in the church. And so I didn't see life from a street perspective growing up. But I didn't know that there was so much friction and tension between the black communities and the policing until I got in it. And so now that I'm in it, I see it. It's very constant. It's a hostile environment, sometimes even when you're dealing in the black communities. And I understand it because sometimes it's the way that we are viewed as black men. It's the way that we are seen sometimes as black men in the United States, that people sometimes have this intimidation factor, that they factor in. But, officers just have to, learn how to, we take this culture diversity class and it teaches us about different cultures and things like that. And so we just have to learn how to deal with different cultures, different ethnicities, and different kind of people. So as long as we continue to train, I believe that we'll start seeing the tension kind of die down.
So do you think that it is essentially just a lack of training, or maybe improper focus, or something that's happening or has happened over the decades that has led to a lot of this, just misunderstanding between cultures?
Definitely. We don't have the training as often as it would be, as it pertains to how to deal with people of a different culture, people of a different race, things like that. We have, just in our city alone, we have Asians, we have Hispanics, and we have Arabic people. And so we have to know how to deal with all those different types of people, and also respect their culture and how they go about their way of living. Make sure we're
So you
not stepping on anybody's rights.
and that's a huge thing, particularly now, man. Just every way you go, Mississippi was actually a kind of a hot spot for churches and policing, which in a couple spots in Mississippi, a couple stories went out
Yeah.
about during the Corona thing. I want to ask you this: as a guy who grew up in a sheltered place, and there are a lot of people that have an idea that, well, anybody that's not like us, we tend to group them together. So we tend to think that all white people are away or all black people are away or whatever, except for the few people that we know in that group that we think they're different just because they're the ones we know or whatever. So that happens. And I'm not excusing it, not saying it's right, obviously. But I think sometimes people tend to treat black culture as if it's monolithic. Like that somehow 95% of black people must think the same thing or like the same music or like the same foods or whatever it might be. Whereas if you go to different regions, different countries, different parts of our country, different parts of your town, people are different. And you talked about how you were sheltered. I put the word sheltered there, but you didn't. You're up a church kid, and so you didn't deal with all this stuff. As a guy who's now in law enforcement, who I think will give us a fair response, and I've seen some of your posts. In fact, that's what kind of caught my attention. You were speaking truth,
Yes, sir.
even from a position of difficulty for yourself. Did you ever have encounters that let you think that before becoming a police officer, that somehow you were handled differently or you were at a different level of danger when encountering police because you were black?
No, I never had that kind of experience. All my driving years, man, I got pulled over for so many times for speeding. I just had that bad habit of getting out here and putting the pedal to the metal, and so that's basically all the kind of encounter that I've ever had with the police, and every time my dad never taught me, how to respond or how to act when I get pulled over. It was just a common sense thing for me, and it was a respect thing. That's one thing that they did teach me, is how to respect my elders, respect those who had authority, respect those who had rule. And so every time I got pulled over, I was respectful regardless. And so other than that, I just never really had any incidents with the police or anything like that.
So you came in obviously at a very good place, a pretty clean slate. I'll ask you this one, because this one's always interesting to me. And I try to tell people that a lot of times I'm not sure that our nation is really honest with itself about racism and where racism is and where racism isn't, and so on and so forth. A lot of times people treat as if small towns are going to have the heavier racism. I've almost found sometimes that's the exact opposite from what I've found in reality, because in small places where people have to live together and everybody's poor and everybody's working hard, it eliminates a lot of that stuff. So just what was race like for you, or was race an issue for you as a young man before pastoring or policing, just as a young man growing up in Mississippi?
Well, I'm a part of the Church of God, man, and the Church of God is a predominantly white denomination, and so we've always interacted with the white people in white churches, going to the conferences and things like that. So I've always been around people of the white race, and so never had a problem with anybody. I had best friends growing up who were white. Still to this day got some, and race has never been an issue for me. I treat all people the same. I treat them all with respect, and that's just the way I was raised. That's the way I was taught, and now as a man of the cloth, when I read the word, I see how we are supposed to treat others, how we want to be treated, and so that goes for anybody of any race. And if we are people of God, if we are men and women of God, then I believe that we have to look at what the word says, regardless of what we've been taught or what we've experienced in life. If we want to be believers of Christ and live like Christ, Christ didn't care who you were. You know, he talked to that woman at the well even when he wasn't supposed to. You know, and so that's how we have to be.
And so, as the growing up in the Church of God, and I'm a Church of God pastor as well, obviously, and Pentecostal denominations have long been a place that unity was part of Pentecost. Going back to the first Pentecostal revivals, unity was part of that. Over the years, that's not to say every Pentecostal has done the right thing and things like that. So, but for you, you're coming in, and this is where I think is beautiful, because I'm talking. I get to talk to a lot of people and have these conversations, and I talk to people that race was always a huge part of their life, and I talk to people that race wasn't a huge part of their life until there comes events like what we're dealing with now, obviously, and so on and so forth. But when you came into the policing world, you came in at a fairly, I would say, I don't want to say naive, but innocent or untarnished view. Seems like you came in saying, hey, this is who I am. I haven't experienced this stuff. Let's
ready
get
to
into
serve.
it. Ready to serve. There you go. So what happened? We talked about the pastoring kind of being in conflict with policing. Was there a point where it seemed like being a black man was at conflict with policing, or where people threw that at you, that was something that couldn't be done?
Man, you know, we get that all the time. When I first, where I live in West Point and where I work, our race ratio is about 65% black, 35% white. And so, or 35% other. And so we encounter more black people out here on this job. But when I first got into the department where I am, it was mostly white. It was predominantly white. Everybody on patrol was white. And I think it was probably about 3 or 4 black guys actually on the police department. And so now that has been flipped around, and we have more blacks actually on patrol and in the communities. And so the black people are actually starting to see more of us on the police department, which then makes it more, they're more comfortable, you know, to talk to us and deal with us and things like that. Because what I found out is that they want to see somebody who looks like them, somebody that they can relate to, when they're getting stopped or when they're getting talked to or anything like that. So, which is not the right thing. You know, it shouldn't matter who it is or what race it is, but you know how it is, man. Some people are just more comfortable talking to their own people that they can relate to and things like that. So, I believe our city did a good job of trying to shift that ratio in the department to kind of match what it looks like in the city.
So as you guys look at the fact that people are more comfortable talking with people that look like them, and I mean, and that's a fact. I mean, no matter who you are, it's comfortable to know you relate to someone. Obviously, in America, you know, skin tone is not the only thing, but it's an instant thing where somebody sees it and goes, okay, you recognize my struggle, or at least you just don't hate me because of my skin tone. Speaking of things that I hate, your series of things I hate on Facebook was pretty funny, I have to say.
Man.
That being said, let me ask you this, man. So you have people that are kind of, no doubt you've heard the comments of, you know, you're not one of us because you've taken on the badge, or why you doing this. But you're not out enforcing the laws against black people. You're out enforcing the laws against lawbreakers, and you're protecting everybody,
That's right.
White, black, whoever they are. That being said, there's been a lot of miseducation that tells people that the police are obviously, you know, anti-black and so on and so forth in some cases. And then there are bad police officers. There are bad events that happen. I'll ask you this one. Have you heard any police officer, because I haven't met any person, but any police officer anywhere that didn't condemn what just happened on the streets of Minneapolis regarding a loss of life, the way that officer handled that. I don't know one police officer that has said that was an okay way to handle a suspect. Any?
As a matter of fact, the guy, I don't know if you saw the guy that I was referring to, that I work with, but I shared his post that he made, and he lost some friends behind it. He's a white guy. And he was condemning the actions that took place in Minnesota, and it was a very, very heartfelt post that he made. So I shared it, and people started sharing it, and it got out there, and he started losing a lot of friends on Facebook behind it. So I did another post asking all of my friends to go and send him friend requests, to replace those fake friends and show him that he got support, even from the black community and from other people that he may not even know, that are standing with him because of the post that he made. But he called me the other day, and he told me, he said that he actually started getting some phone calls and texts from other white officers, that told him basically they didn't agree with anything he said in his post. He was wrong. He shouldn't have posted it. And if they saw him struggling out there on the street fighting with somebody, they wouldn't even stop to help him. And
wow.
I was in total disbelief that an officer, not just a person, but you got an officer out here, somebody who's carrying a gun, somebody who has the authority to arrest people and use force on people, to do whatever needs to be done, out here saying statements like that. I mean, what we saw in that video, as you said, I haven't heard any police officer that didn't condemn it, but I guess they're out there, man. They are out there, and I asked them. I said, "Man, is this anybody I know?" Because I want to know, who I'm laboring among. That's what the Bible tells us. Know those who labor among you. And so I wanted to know, but he told me it wasn't anybody that I knew, and wasn't anybody around this area. So that was a relief. But for somebody in the community that they do work in, that's
wow. That's terrible to think that there are guys out there that would even just say, hey, man, we're not only do we not think it was wrong, but we're going to remove our duty to help protect you based upon that, man.
I actually believe that that's the reason we're not seeing as many white officers actually come out and post about it. Like, they'll talk about it and they'll say things about it in their circles or in their group or at the police department or whatever. But I haven't seen many of them come out and make public posts or comments concerning it, because what they told him is that it looks like he's for the protests and for the rioting and for all of that stuff. Well, it has nothing to do with the protests and the rioting, just because I say that what happened in Minnesota was wrong. What happened there was totally wrong. And, what you're seeing in the riots and the protests is just a reaction of what everybody else saw that was wrong. And so it doesn't mean that he's for it. I made my post. I made my stance against what happened in Minnesota. That doesn't mean that I'm for people going out and tearing up buildings and burning buildings down,
I think that's one thing that people, I'll say it, and I've been trying to have this conversation a lot. Number one, I don't have to approve of something to say I get what happened. I understand it.
Exactly.
There are people that you arrest, no doubt, that, somebody said something to them and then they assaulted them and you go, hey, it's the law. You did the wrong thing. I got to arrest you. I get why you just hit that guy, but it's still wrong. And so I get the anger. I do think a lot of the protests are things that are being stirred up for the purpose of discrediting, because there were a lot of people that were sitting back that couldn't wait for riots to start. They didn't say this,
Exactly.
but they were sitting back waiting so they could then be like, oh, okay, now we can talk about that instead of talking about what actually happened. And so when you're dealing with that, man, and you're trying to walk this line. I've actually had we've had marches and things like that here where I'm at.
Okay.
I will tell you something that I'm struggling with as a pastor, as a white pastor. Now, I have a multicultural church. I have a lot of people of color in my church. And so I'm aware. I've talked with moms that have talked about the fear that they have. I've had people in my church that have talked about that. In all fairness, I've talked with people who said they had experienced racism in other situations, and people that weren't black that have experienced racism, and so on and so forth. That being said, obviously we know what the conversation is happening right now, but when these marches and things happen, I'll tell you where I'm struggling. I'm struggling because I'm finding it difficult, and I'm sure, man, you're walking this out worse than I ever am, because you got to stand for God. You got to try to stand for your duty as a police officer and the fraternal brotherhood of being police. Right. And you're dealing with life as a man of color. I'm trying to figure out how, as a white pastor, do I show solidarity with the idea that what has happened with police brutality and systemic racism is wrong, but every time I see a group that's having a march or a rally or an event, they also stand for things I completely don't agree with. And so that's for example, Black Lives Matter. I believe the words Black Lives Matter. I believe that all day long. But I also believe that you ought to plan your parenthood. Unfortunately, a group called Planned Parenthood took the words Planned Parenthood. So now I can't use Planned Parenthood. And Black Lives Matter has been co-opted by this group that's pro-homosexual and all these other things, pro-trans and this stuff that's difficult for me, pro-abortion, even the NAACP, which, I love the idea of doing everything we can to provide equality and so on and so forth. But so many of these groups are tied back to abortion and things like that. So honestly, it's difficult to figure out. So as a pastor, man, how are you walking that out right now with making your voice heard while trying to navigate this whole thing? And what would you recommend to other pastors? Is it okay to go out and join the walk? Is it not? As a police officer, do you feel abandoned when you see another pastor talking about these events? Like, help me out with that stuff.
Man, I just witnessed that the other day. A white pastor friend of mine, he one who I look up to, and I actually he kind of taught me. You familiar with MIP? He taught me in MIP here, but he made a post condemning the riots and things like that, and just talking about it's time to start fasting and praying for this Antichrist spirit that's taking place around the world. And I immediately went to his page and just went down his timeline to see, well, did he say anything about the George Floyd situation, and he didn't take any stance or didn't make any posts condemning what happened with George Floyd or anything like that. And so I just hit him in the comments, and I said, I understand, how you feel about the riots and the protests and stuff like that. But I asked him, I said, where's your post about the George Floyd situation and the reason why we're seeing the riots? And so that's what I believe. Many of my black pastor friends, that's what they are looking for. They're looking to see, are any of the white pastors standing up, speaking out, saying anything about it? Because at the end of the day, we have to stand together and be able to call right and wrong. If the pastors are not doing it, because what we got to realize is that these people are in our congregations, and so many of the black churches don't have multicultural. They don't have a lot of whites in their congregations, and so many of these churches that have it, where you have a white pastor who's leading a multicultural congregation, or even if it's just all white, their voice need to be speaking out against what we are seeing in this world today, because your voice, it matters to your congregants. Your voice is what they are hearing and what they are listening to. And if they don't hear you speak out against it, then they'll think that you're okay with it, and they'll think that it's okay for things to just play out like it is. But that's why it's so important that the pastors, they have to speak out. They have to speak out.
So when it comes to pastors speaking out, it sounds like what you're saying, hey, man, we got to speak truth into all these situations. And you, as a police officer, I read your post. You spoke against what happened, and you're a police officer.
Yeah.
That being said, I feel like we are so used to being in groups and not being able to speak against anything that we think might align with our group or whatever, to the point now that we've abandoned truth, as many pastors have taken a political position. And recently, Tim Keller said something that just stood out to me. And he talked about how in America, there's basically these four major issues, right? You have racism, abortion, sexuality, and the poor. Yep. And he said that what's happened is we've made those political issues. So one political side says we're going to talk about racism and poverty. The other political side says we're going to talk about abortion and sexuality. Well, at the end of the day, I can't just say, hey, I'm a conservative, so I'll talk about abortion, but if you talk about poverty or racism, then I'm not with you. Or I'm going to talk about, the other side says, I'm going to talk about racism, but if you're going to talk about abortion or homosexuality, we're not with you. But the Bible calls us to speak to all of those things.
Exactly. And
that means
that's basically, that's basically what I pointed out to him. I said, man, I see all the time where you posting about abortion and what you were just saying, the sexuality, homosexual and things like that, transgender. But where's your post and where's your stance when it comes to racism? Like, do you not think that it exists, or do you think that that's something that should be overlooked and not talked about? But like you said, it's our duty as pastors to speak the truth regardless. And that's what I felt when I saw that video. I said, regardless of whether I get in trouble, regardless of whether I lose my job, this video right here is something that I have to speak out on. I have to. There was no way possible that I couldn't speak out on this video.
Hey, More Than a Conversation listeners, I hope that you are enjoying this conversation as much as I am, and I hope that you're getting something great out of it today. I'm just wanting to jump in here in the middle to take a moment and let you know a few ways that you can help out More Than a Conversation. First, wherever you're listening, please go ahead and click that subscribe button. That will definitely help, and that'll make sure that you get all the content. Also, if you have a way to rate, if your app allows you to give a 4-star, 5-star, whatever the rating is that's the top rating, I would so appreciate if you would go ahead and drop a rating there. That's how the aggregators and the distributors rank podcasts, and the higher the ranking you give, the more ears will be able to hear these great conversations. Thanks again, and I'm hoping that today has been more than a conversation for you. Now let's get back to it. And so you spoke out, and did you get any personal negative feedback from speaking out?
Oh, they know not to take my phone with anything crazy. But no, and I went and I talked to my chief. My chief, he looks at he monitors our posts and things like that. And I talked with him a few days afterward, and I asked him, I said, man, how you feel about it? And we talked about it and everything. And he said, I see your post went viral. He said, I said, yeah, I wasn't expecting that. He said, well, I was. He said, when I read it, I already knew. but he's a cool guy, man. And nobody has said anything negative about it. And I think what we're seeing right now is that a lot of officers, especially officers of color, are actually starting to really voice their opinions and really voice what's taking place. Because for one thing, our black people, they're looking for that. They're looking for the officers of color to start speaking out against this stuff. And that's not the reason I spoke out. I spoke out because I had a personal conviction and I needed to speak out.
There certainly is a lot of pressure, I'm sure, on you to speak in so many ways, man. I'm supposed to speak as you're expected to represent all these communities, and that's
Yes.
gotta be difficult, man.
And it's a lot that you want to say that you can't say because you're a pastor. There's a lot that you want to say but you can't say because you're a police officer. It's so much. And when I put the post together, I have to really monitor what I say and the words and how I say it and how it's conveyed. So you're exactly right.
And ultimately, at the end of the day, as a lot of posts, I've seen a lot of police officers, men of color, posting about, at the end of the day, I take off the uniform. In your case,
Right.
you don't take off Christ, but you can resign
Yeah.
being a pastor. But
Yeah.
you'll never not be a black man.
Yeah.
That's never. So when that, at the end of the day, there is the reality that I am all these other things that I'm trying to adhere to, and you're pursuing two of the most honorable things that can possibly be pursued. And that is the idea of being the sword of the Lord, as the Bible talks about, of authority, governmental authority, and then being a pastor. You're trying to save lives and redeem souls. You're trying to do too much, man. You're trying to do too much.
And I tell myself that all the time.
And so, as you're trying to do that, as you're trying to walk this thing out and do these honorable pursuits, at the same time, we're seeing so much happen in the world around us. Just that, I guess my question is, when you take off the uniform and when you take off being a pastor, what's your feeling then? I know there's probably a limit to how much you can speak based on those two roles, but what's your feeling then?
At the end of the day, man, I get it. I understand. And that's what I was telling my pastor the other day. We was on a call and I was telling him and some of the other pastors, I said, what's going on in Minnesota and now in different parts of the world, of the country, the rioting and things like that, I can't advocate for it and I don't advocate for it, but I understand it. I understand why the people are speaking out. I understand why the people are acting out. Dr. King said this. He said that rioting is the language of the unheard. Rioting is the language of the unheard, meaning people when they feel like they are not being heard, when they feel like nobody gets it, nobody is listening, that's when people will start acting out because nobody's paying them any attention. And that's what we're seeing right now. So I understand it. I get it, especially as a black man, because like you said, at the end of the day, when I take off this uniform, I'm a black man. And when I go in stores without my uniform on, nobody looks at me with a big smile. Nobody offers to take care of my meal or anything like that. Nobody, no kids run and hug me, things like that, man. But that we normally see when we have the uniform on. At the end of the day, I'm just another black man, and sometimes, man, I feel it even when I'm in stores where I don't work and I'm in a different place, and people don't know me from Adam. I can feel sometimes how people watch me more as a black man. But at the end of the day, like I said, that's why I get it. That's why I understand how the people feel coming from that side of it. I understand it.
And that's got to be a difficult thing knowing that you are the protector. You're the guy that
Yeah,
when they call 911, it's going to be you showing up. But when you're not in
that's
uniform,
right.
you're getting watched, or somebody's got their eye on you, or
Right.
that's I can't imagine the frustration that must bring about, man. Just knowing that, like, guys,
Yeah.
I'm out here doing all I know to protect you, and
You know,
you find
sometimes
yourself.
sometimes I go in the same stores that I patrol in and walk in with my uniform on, and the people know me and recognize me. But then if I take that uniform off, they won't even look at me twice. Like they just know the badge, they know the uniform, but they don't pay attention to the face.
Yeah, and there's probably a lot that can come into that, man. There's probably a lot that can be talked about there that I think all of us can learn from the fact that you just said a lot. They see the uniform, but they don't see the face. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes we see the clothing or the skin color or the whatever that separates somebody from us, the age, the
Yeah.
language, and we don't see that who that person is, who that individual
That's right.
is. That at the end
That's
of the
right.
day, they're a human being just like you or I. They're going to go home and they're going to try to spend time with their family, and they're gonna hug their kids, and they're gonna live that life. And I think that's where
Yeah.
we get so messed up, is that we spend so much time in this world of, again, just being lazy, man. We're judging people based on
Right.
this group think, instead of judging them based
Yeah.
on who they are as an individual.
That's right. Like
Absolutely.
Dr. King said, the content of their character instead of the color of their skin. And that's what we need to see.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, as we're moving forward, what do you think are some good steps? Like, what needs to happen to try to calm some things down? And honestly, at the end of the day, I don't think the goal should be just to calm things down so the situation goes away. But
Yeah.
what are some steps that can be taken from the police side, from the community side? And again, man, here I go. It's like I'm interviewing three people at one time. What are the things that we can do that will help things move forward? What kind of changes need to be made, and what kind of things can we all do?
Okay. I can speak to that in three different parts. So for one, I'll say let's start in the home. In the home is where it all begins. You're learning. Uh, all teaching all teaching shouldn't happen in school. All teaching shouldn't happen through life experience outside the home. A lot of teaching happens or should happen right there in the home. So what I've seen as a police officer, here's the divide that I've seen. A lot of white families teach their children to respect the police, teach their children that the police are their friends. And I see, I'll tell you one experience that I've had uh, with one of the people that I know. Uh, a lot of black children, they see the police as the enemy, and that's because their parents have taught them that. They teach them. They go to police. Be quiet. They go to police. Sit down. They go to police. Buckle up. They go to police. And it's so many things that they're teaching the children. But here's the thing as well. White kids, they'll come up to us, and I've had one come up to me and tell me thank you for your service. But here's what they're telling the black kids. My son being bad, come arrest him. This is what I get every time I'm in uniform and I see black people with their children in Walmart or out in the grocery store or wherever. They go to police. I'm finna tell him to arrest you. That's not teaching your child that to put the police in a good light. And so there's one divide in what I've seen amongst blacks and amongst whites, how they teach their children to look at the police or respect the police. Number two, in our churches, like I said, it's time now for the pastors to start really bringing light to this notion that racism is real. It does exist, and teach your congregants. We are ones that's gonna love everybody, regardless of skin color. Don't have any hidden motives. Don't have any hidden agendas. Just genuinely love everybody. And then the last thing, from the police perspective, I just watched a video not too long ago, just before we got on, actually, of officers in Flint, Michigan, where the sheriff there, I believe his name is Chris Swanson. He stood out there in the midst of the protest, and he told them, he said, "We are here with y'all. We are not here to arrest y'all. We're not here to beat y'all up." He said, "We are here standing with you all because what happened over there in Minnesota was wrong." And he said, "We are putting down our batons. We're taking off our helmets." And he said, "We are out here with you." He asked them, he said, "What do you want us to do? What can we do?" The people started chanting, "Walk with us. Walk with us." Those officers, those deputies, they laid down everything. They got out there in the street and they walked together with those people. That's what it's going to take. That's what it's going to take to start seeing things come together. It's going to take from all aspects, in the home, in the church, and also out here in the streets with the police officers.
We got a question here from Larry Evans, he just said you were the real deal a minute ago.
That's a good friend of mine there, man.
He dropped a question, and I don't know if that's coming up on your screen or not, but it says, to add to the point of how things have gotten so politicized, how some not speak out against racism as they should, because they see it as more of a political point that's being manipulated for political gain. And you're onto something right there, Larry. You're onto something right there. Ever since emancipation, the black community has been treated as a commodity for political gain. Abraham Lincoln freeing the slaves for the purpose of political gain. A lot of the Civil Rights Act things being political gain.
Right.
To recent candidates and things that they said. And I'm not getting political, so I'm leaving that out.
Yeah.
But recent candidates and stuff they've said that try to lump everybody together. But you said both parties are responsible for that. How do we change that? And since Larry called you the real deal, I'm going to let you tell us, how do we change that? How do we change that?
Man, it's all perspective. It's all perspective, and you're exactly right. And Larry, I thank you for bringing up the question and pointing that out, because that's what it looks like, that the people use the black community for political gain. Like I watch House of Cards on Netflix, and I've seen where how it works basically in the Congress, and they were showing how you have to go out and you have to whip for votes and things like that, and you got the Black Caucus that they all gonna vote one way, and so it's about who can win the Black Caucus, who can bring the Black Caucus over to their side, and so they're looking at ways to win over the black votes, ways to win over the Hispanic votes. And so they look at what can we give them, or what can we say we're going to give them in order to win their vote. And most black people, I don't know how they vote, I know most of them vote Democrat or whatever, but you have to look at, and this is my thing, I don't look at the Democrat or Republican side of things. I look at what's right, and I look at the character of the person that's voting, that's running. If I know them, I'm gonna look at your character, not your skin color. I tell people all the time, I want the best man in office, not just the man that looked like me. I want the best person in office, because the person with the best heart is the one that's gonna help win up. Because you got a lot of black people, man, that they'll run for things and they'll go out and do things like that. But they'll say they're going to do something, but then they won't even come through on what they're saying. So how we get it changed, Larry, I don't know, man. We just got to change our view, I guess. We got to change our view. It's all about perspective.
And I think, too, it's important for us to stop. And this is not just black people being treated as a party vote, as a block vote and monolithic, but also even like the church. We have to stop allowing ourselves to be bought by candidates based on them saying one or two things that are our pet issues. We have to hold them accountable. But the problem is we're not ever going to hold accountable a national platform until we're involved in our communities and on a community level, dealing with people at the level of mayor and city council and board of education. I mean, you want to change some things, get that board of education on the right path. You know, that's right. That's huge.
I had to correct somebody the other day. They put up a post talking about how law enforcement is forcing people to stay in homes and forcing people to not come out during this corona thing. And I had to correct them. I said, we are not the ones that put those laws into effect. I said, we are law enforcers. We are not lawmakers. And so they have to understand that the people that you put in these positions are the ones making those decisions and making those laws. And then they tell us go and enforce it. So if you want to see change, in how laws are made and things like that, is exactly like you said, you have to go and get down to the nitty gritty in your local governments and in your state governments before you can try to reach it at the national level.
We got another question that has come through, and we'll take a look at it. This one is from Jeffrey Woolston. It says, is the knee on the neck a tactic that is taught to officers to subdue a suspect?
You know, we was talking about this yesterday at the department. That's not a tactic that's taught to put your knee on somebody's neck. No, that's not a tactic. Sometimes, yes, we do put our weight on somebody using our knee into their back to keep them on the ground when they're fighting or things like that. We would put our weight on somebody, but knee on the neck, and especially for that extended period of time, that hasn't been taught in any academy that I know of.
So when someone, let's talk about tactics for just a second there. When someone is subdued, when they've been handcuffed, is there a tactic? Is there something in your training that says, okay, you've had your knee on their back, maybe during the fight your knee was on their neck for a moment, whatever, because, I mean, you are enforcing law. There is force, and sometimes I think the public has trouble stomaching that violence looks violent. And so, you know, sometimes they don't just understand what they're seeing. That being said, while you are dealing with that, maybe that happened, but then when the person's handcuffed, is it typical to keep someone face down with handcuffed behind them while having weight on them? Or like, what do you do once they're handcuffed? And are you told that you're supposed to do something once someone is handcuffed? Because to me, it seems like face down, compressing my lungs like that with my arms behind me would just be hard to breathe in general.
Yeah.
What do they teach you guys about that?
I mean, once the threat is gone, you have to act like, you know, there's no longer a threat. And at that point, human decency should come into effect. Nobody should have to teach you how to treat somebody after there's no threat. You know, you go back to treating them like you would treat anybody else at any other point in time. Once that threat is gone, if they was fighting before and you finally got them reined in, you finally got them subdued and handcuffed, the threat has been eliminated. And so now you should go back to acting and treating him with the respect that he deserves. Even if he put up a huge fight, you know, you have to still respect, because human decency should come into effect.
Here's another question that's come through. This one is from we got a lot of Church of God guys in here. Matt Gunner from Western North Carolina, he asks the question, The camaraderie and brotherhood in emergency services is very strong. Has the current events affected that in any way? And if so, what way? So how's it changing the brotherhood? Are you feeling a change in that camaraderie? And full disclosure, Pastor Gunner, Bishop Gunner, has actually had a long history in emergency services in the fire department. So how is that camaraderie changing based on the events that are happening?
Man, I haven't seen a change as of yet. Like I said, man, most of the people are totally against what happened up there in Minnesota. Most of the people that I've talked to, most of the people that I deal with, we are all locked in together against this, and so I don't see anything changing as it comes to camaraderie and brotherhood. Man, we all there together.
Does it feel personally offensive to you? You talked about the silence of other pastors. As a police officer, does it feel offensive to you when you hear people speaking out about, ending police brutality? Is that something that seems like, hey, you're being anti-police, or and another question, like pastors, at this point, sometimes pastors feel like we're forced to speak about everything, but now we're speaking against racism. So what about the people in law enforcement? Like, at this point, should they be getting, upset that, hey, well, pastors aren't speaking in support of us right now? Or is this a moment where, as police officers, you go, you know what, based on what's happening right now, we're going to sit this one out and just say, y'all can give us credit later, because based on what's happening, this is where the conversation needs to go. What do you feel about that?
Man, I feel like we, as police officers, we have to also speak to these situations ourselves. We can't expect everybody else to speak what we are trying to speak, or to always have the view like we have. With the Kaepernick situation back in 2016, I was hands off of that. I said, he's taking the knee because of police brutality, and basically putting all the police in one basket, saying that we all bad or whatever. And so I was hands off at that time. But then as things continue to be brought to light, as the years have continued to go by, I said, I understand the protest. I understand it now. And like I said earlier, I came into this, and you brought it out. I came into this policing a little naive to all the things that was really taking place around the world. But as you begin to really see what's happening and what's taking place, you understand why people take the stance that they take and why people do the things that they do. And though they may say police brutality, you just have to know yourself as an officer and know that you're not one of those who treat others in a disrespectful manner. You're going to show the same respect to a white guy as you would a black guy, or black guy as you would a white guy and Hispanic guy, or whatever. Just got to be fair across the board, and that's what I try to portray every time I put that uniform on.
And that's no doubt a difficult thing in times like this, to just try to maintain that balance, to try to keep in a healthy space. What are you doing right now? Let me ask you this one, just as a brother, as we're just having this conversation. What are you doing right now to keep yourself mentally, spiritually? It's got to be draining, man. Right now, you're having a conversation that people from across the country are commenting on. You got posts going viral, and then you got to go to work and be a police officer. Then you've got your friend who's a white police officer saying guys are saying they're not going to back him up because what he said about that being wrong. So you got that thought going on. Then you've got, I can see a picture of two young men right there over your shoulder. So you got them that you're thinking about, your sons you're raising in this world. Man, it's gotta be just a mess. I know me, I'm not nearly as entrenched as you are. And I got up this morning, first thing my smartwatch says is police attacked, and it listed the places police got shot last night. So I got that going on.
Wow.
I'm listening to people in my community, and I'm thinking, but here you are, you're walking it out. I'm observing it, and it's heavy on me. So
Yeah.
what are you doing right now, man? How you dealing with this stuff? How are you coping? What mechanisms are you using?
Man, it's like I tell the people in my congregation, we got to stay prayed up. We got to stay in the face of God, because a lot of these things that's going on around the world can really take a toll on anybody mentally, but especially a person in my shoes. And what I found out is that it's a lot of pastors who are also police out there, man. And for those of us who are walking in those shoes, we have to basically, just stay prayed up. One of my ministers preached a message a couple of Sundays ago at the church, and he said we just got to stay on the wall. We stay on the wall, just like Nehemiah did. Recognize that you are doing a great work, and that's what I have to tell myself a lot of times, man, because I catch flack sometimes from the black community because I'm a black man that take black people to jail and write black people tickets, but then I preach on Sundays and stuff like that. So I take a lot of heat from those people, and I had to continue telling myself, hey, you're doing a great work. You know that you treat people with respect. You know that you are not out here harassing anybody. You know you're not out here stepping on anybody's rights or anything like that. You're doing your job and you're doing a great work. And I have to keep myself reminded of that. And first, how you do that, you just stay in communion with God, man. You talk to Him and let Him keep you endowed with that power, that Holy Spirit that's gonna lead you through it and guide you through it, man.
Amen. Amen. Another comment that popped up says, my pastor Brian Lindsay in his Pentecost Sunday message said the power of Pentecost brought people to faith in Christ and brought about positive change in society was, quote, speaking the language of their neighbor. Their neighbor being people from all over the world who are present on that day. As the church, we need to learn to speak the language of our neighbor by the power of the Holy Spirit.
That's good. That is good. And that's exactly right. We if we would learn to hear each other and learn how to talk with one another and speak, find the heart of the matter. Find the heart of the matter. If we will reach deep down and see the heart that our people are crying out in, and we can just use basic empathy and put ourselves in those people's shoes, whether we ever walk a day in those shoes or not. We can all use empathy and put ourselves in somebody else's position and kind of see how we would feel if we were walking their shoes. And so that's what you're saying, man. Speak the language. Speak the language. That's good.
That is absolutely a great comment, man. Learning to speak that language. But the only way we can do it is through the power of the Holy Spirit. So, Jeffrey, thank you for that comment, and thank your pastor for that statement, because at the end of the day, I can't speak. I can only speak from my experience. Yeah. And one of the things, man, I was like, I've got to talk to Pastor Jackson. I've got to talk to him. He's bringing all these perspectives. He's speaking the truth when it's difficult for him. I have to talk to him. And so we were able to get on today and have this conversation.
Yes,
that being said, the reason I wanted to talk to you is because you have experience from all these different worlds.
Yes, sir.
But I have a different experience than yours, and someone else has a different experience than that. And so if we all have these different experiences, the only thing that's going to bring us together to be able to have that conversation is going to be operating in the love of God and the power of the Holy Spirit.
That's it.
And that's it.
That's it.
Absolutely. Well, Pastor Jackson, man, I appreciate you so much coming on today. We had a great conversation. I thank you for being very transparent about what it is to be a police officer, a pastor, a man of color during this time.
Yes,
I appreciate your honesty. And I'll say this, I appreciate the fact that you are you're keeping it straight in what you're saying and what you're doing. You're speaking truth. It can be so tempting. I no doubt, as a police officer, it can be tempting to speak the police narrative. And as a man of color, it can be tempting to speak the man of color narrative. But I love the fact that the things you say, hey, I didn't experience that. The things you did, you said, hey, I did. I love that honesty. That's what we need more of, because everybody out there is experiencing a different thing. And one side, just because Pastor Jackson hasn't experienced a police officer that said he didn't agree doesn't mean they don't exist. Just because some guys said they wouldn't back somebody up doesn't mean all guys are like that. Just because he had certain racial experiences, that doesn't mean that everyone has had those racial experiences, or that no one has. All of these things are our individual experiences, and that's the point of More Than a Conversation, guys. That's why you keep downloading and so on and so forth. So thank you to everybody for downloading. Thank you for clicking like and share. Get over. The audio version of this is going to be coming out. We got lots of audio version stuff that's coming out soon. It's going to be a lot of things out there for you to download wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you're giving us 4 stars wherever you can, 5 stars, whatever it is. If there's 5 stars, don't give me 4. But whatever the top ranking is, give us that. Get over there, man. You're going to start a public account. I think you're out of space for people to add you as friend. I don't know.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Hey, I want to leave this with you, man. I saw somebody post this. It was actually a white pastor. He posted this. He said the percentage of people killed by the police annually had whites at 55%, blacks at 27%, Hispanics at 19%. I want to speak to that real quick. The reason why you see that number so high for whites, number one, is because whites are predominantly the dominant race in the nation, and so typically they would be higher on that list. But also, this shows the number of police shootings that happens by suicide by cop, terrorist things like that. All kind of active shooter things like that. But the reason why the black people are really outraged is because of this stat right here. And that is the number of blacks who are killed while unarmed. And that's the reason why the people are so outraged. Because what we have to realize is that this is a stat from 2015. 30% of black victims were unarmed in 2015 when they were shot and killed by the police. And so, and it also states that blacks are 3 times more likely to be killed by the police when unarmed. And that's the thing that people are outraged about, because justifiable killings by the police department, by police officers, that's understandable. If it's something that we can't avoid and it has to happen, don't nobody want to take anybody's life, but sometimes that's just what has to happen in that moment. It's either their life or your life, or it's either their life or somebody else's life that they're trying to kill. And so that's what I want to highlight, and just kind of put that out there, that we're not saying that blacks are being killed more than whites or anything else. It's just that blacks are being killed at a higher rate when they are unarmed and not really showing a reason to be killed, like what we saw in Minnesota.
Thank you for laying that out. And there's a lot there too, man. When the thing about statistics is, depending on who gathered them and who's delivering them, there's so much there. One of the things too, when you just look at what percentage of the shootings were black, do you have that number in front of you again?
27. You talking about total?
Total percentage was 27. So if 27% of the people were black, but isn't only 12% of the population black? And so
exactly,
that leads to a whole nother question. And people could talk about crimes. We could talk about violent crime rates among ethnicities. We can talk about all those things. But crime rates and those things also go back to systemic issues. They go back to poverty. They go back to a lot of other things that is a whole deep conversation. And at the end of the day, I don't think there's outrage out there because people are even expecting the police to never shoot anyone. I think there's outrage out there because the people are saying, hey, when it does go wrong, and inevitably it will go wrong, but when it does go wrong, at least just say it's wrong. At least don't make it be 3 months before there's an arrest. Or why does a city got to be burned? I mean, if you pulled up, if you think about it, and I believe that there should be due process for police, and I get all those things, but some things are just so obvious that it shouldn't take 4 days for an arrest to be made.
Come on.
And I think that's the thing. I don't agree with one city burning. I don't agree with any of those things that went on. I do agree with the right to protest. If I have the right to march for life at the abortion clinic or outside the Capitol building or whatever it is, I believe that anybody has the right to protest.
That's right.
That being said, destruction of property, things like that, we absolutely don't agree with that. But if there was an arrest made within a day, how many cities are saved? If there's an arrest made and a DA comes out and says, looks directly in the camera and says to America, I want you to understand something. This looked egregious, and I'm going to do everything I can to prosecute this. We all applaud. And I know you've seen the videos, and I agree, but we all applaud when some sheriff somewhere comes out and makes a video. It's usually an election year, but about how they're going to get tough on some street or some house or some gang or whatever, and we're coming to get you, and we're going to do that. We all applaud that. Well, why not do that in this case? That would do so much for the public as a whole to hear people say, hey, this was wrong and this is what we're going to do about it. Because at the end of the day, there's sometimes it goes wrong, and sometimes it's going to go wrong with people of any race. But people said, again, one of the other things, and I'm sure this is one that's probably been an aggravation to you, is if I see one more post that says, well, where's the rioting when about this crime, or where's the rioting? The black police officer that shot the Australian lady up in, I think that was in Minnesota too, maybe somewhere up there. People are like, hey, where was the rioting there? Well, the fact of the matter is there's not rioting because for the most part, well, number one, there was an arrest, but number two, that there is, and I don't know the details of how long it was as I say that, but there is a confidence in the system that we have. We believe the system's going to treat us fairly for the most part. And so I think that you don't have to agree with it to understand that people feel like nobody can hear them. And that's a difficult thing. Absolutely. Personal responsibility, guys. For those of you watching, I'm asking everybody to take a pledge of personal responsibility regarding racism. And that is racism that's burning our cities, and racism that causes people not to care when someone of a different color dies doesn't start at that moment. It starts when the person you go to church with makes the joke, and maybe you don't laugh at it, but you don't speak up. It starts when somebody says, hey, he's a good guy for a black guy, and you don't go, well, what do you mean by that? It starts when people say, well, you know how they are talking about white folks, and you don't go, well, what do you mean by that? When we don't start... The way we can stop racism is to start holding the people around us accountable, make them defend the things they say, make them defend their reasoning, let them that's the way we're going to do this. We're not going to do it through a political action. Honestly, we're not even going to do it through marches and protests. At this point, all they're doing is dividing us further. But what you can do is take responsibility among your people group, who are the people that look like you, the people that come from your background, to when they start saying things like that, you can speak up and say, hold on a second, have you ever thought? That's what you can do. And get to know somebody of a different race. Pastor Jackson, anything you want to leave with us today?
Hey, man, I just want to thank you for reaching out and giving me the opportunity to come on. I love to be a part of dialogue like this because, like you said and pointed out, I see it from so many different angles, man. And I put out a post back in 2016 that kind of highlighted all those different angles as a black man, as a police officer, and as a pastor. And so I see it from so many different viewpoints. And to be able to share that with people and let my sentiments be made known, I appreciate the platform and the opportunity to do so. So thank you, man.
Man, it was so good to have you on today. Let me ask you this before you go. Where can people follow you? Where can they keep up with you? Where can they hear you preach? where on social media can they find you? If people want to hear more of what you've got to say, and you've got something to say, brother, you've got something the world needs to hear. You're speaking truth. Keep speaking it. But where can people go to hear what you're telling us?
You can go find me on Facebook. My personal page on Facebook is Alex D. Jackson Senior, just like it is on the screen. And also you can find us at the Transformational Church on Facebook. If you put at TT Church 1, it will come up on Facebook. We're also on YouTube, the Transformational Church. You can find us on there. I also have a public page that you said I need to have. I started one a couple of years ago because I reached that 5,000 max. But you can find me on there as well. It's Pastor Alex Jackson on Facebook as well.
I got another
Thank you,
comment
Jeffrey.
Came in. Yeah, there you go. Thank you for your service. Thank you to
Yes,
God,
sir.
the community, and so again, great to have you on, man. Guys, go over, give that page a follow, check out the church, listen to what Pastor Jackson's saying. I hope today has been more than a conversation for all of you. Thanks again for being part of More Than a Conversation today. If you'd like more content like this, check out my blog at www.pastorconley.com. That's PastorConley.com. Again, that's PastorConley.com. I'd also love to see you join us in worship at Garden Sanctuary. If you're ever in Rock Hill, South Carolina, or the greater Charlotte area, we'd love to have you stop by and worship with us. Check us out at www.gardensanctuary.org. That's gardensanctuary.org. Until next time, I hope this has been more than a conversation.